I know that you are meeting the members of the Ministry of Refugees later today. So what are the main points that you are going to tell them today?
I think there are two main reasons why we want to talk to them today. The first is to tell them about the findings of our report, the areas where we still think that there are steps to be made to improve the lives of the displaced people to live in dignity. We want to talk to them about not only issues of housing but the other things that need to go hand in hand with housing, things like access to employment so that people can have a sustainable livelihood, access to healthcare. Many people told us that they found their current situation in remote locations, for example, made it very expensive to travel to get medical care if that needed to be on a repeated basis, or if they needed to actually pay for medicines. They felt, many of them, that that was beyond their capacity. So there are a number of these issues that we want to raise with them along with our recommendations. But one of the other reasons is that progress has been made and a number of initiatives are continuing in this area, and some of those have developed since we actually finalised our report a month or so ago. So what we also want to do is talk to the Ministry about any new initiatives that they're having so that we're up to date with those and we can accurately reflect those. And one of the reasons why we'd arranged to meet them yesterday was this precise reason, so that if there were any updates to what we had in our report, we could reflect those in our press conference. And it was unfortunate and urgent reason that the Minister had to rearrange for today, but we still, it's still valuable to have a dialogue with them and to learn of their updates and initiatives.
I've just looked through your report last night, so I've written some points. So one of them is the inaccurate registration, because of why some of them really don't have a status of a refugee still. What do you think are their problems, and are those for those who don't have the status still, and how is it connected to all the problems that you have mentioned here, like health problems, unemployment, inadequate housing, human rights concerns, social security, social integration, and others?
I think for many people, having the status of an IDP is important because it gives access to certain other benefits. So if they don't have that status, if there's a problem with that, it causes them problems further down the line in terms of accessing a number of things that are available to them. Now, some of these benefits are also obviously available to the rest of the population, and ideally in an integrated system there would be no difference between a displaced person and the rest of the population. That's what full integration means. But in the meantime, for people who don't have this status, it can be difficult for them, particularly, for example, in the process of transferring ownership of property into the ownership of the displaced people. If you aren't registered as an IDP, then that opportunity is lost to you. So that's one of the reasons why people feel that it's important that they have this and that the registration process is done properly.
And for those who still have status, they have a lot of problems, as you have mentioned in your report. Like one of the key points are unemployment. And what do you think are the chances of those people who really, before they go to their homes, if they have ever a chance to return there, now what kind of possibility the government has to give them earning money for living?
Yes, I mean we recognise that this is it's not an easy situation. It's a complex problem, and unemployment is an issue that affects many people in Georgia, not just the displaced people. So we think that there are two things that could be done. Firstly, as we understand it, there isn't actually a strategy on employment and unemployment in Georgia that would look at this issue in the general context and set out some measures to combat the problem of unemployment generally. So I think if we had that, then that would be a start in finding ways to access the job market for all the people that need it in Georgia, not just the displaced people. So that's the general context. In connection with the displaced people, many people, especially those who've been displaced for a long time, feel that they haven't been able to exercise their skills, so they've lost them. Or in the context of the newly displaced people, they perhaps were used to farming their land and they're in a situation now where they can't do that, so they feel that they might need to have retraining in some other areas. Now, we understand that there are some pilot projects on retrainings and so on, but they're not countrywide and they're not comprehensive. So what many people said to us who were displaced was that they had, for example, a period of training, but there was no sustainable follow-up from that. So, for example, there wasn't a placement for them in a job after their training. So often they felt that there was no result from the training and they'd given up time from something else to do that, but it didn't lead to anything. So I think there's a need for these retrainings, vocational trainings, attempts to find job placements to be done in a more comprehensive and sustainable manner for them actually to lead to what I'm sure is everybody's aim, is that the displaced people and the rest of the people in Georgia have the opportunities to have a sustainable livelihood.
Mm-hmm. And what about those, maybe you'll note shortly, what's the main difference between those old generation of refugees and new generation of refugees? And in this term, I would like you to answer the question of, in terms of their properties, how many of them have entered the abandoned places which really are not registered, and they are not registered there, and now the new people who have privatized those buildings, they have kicked them out from there, and some of them are really integrated here, and they really have to go to villages. And what do you think, how will these affect their lives to reintegrate on the third time? First they arrived from Sukhumi, then they lived here for 17 years, and they have to go back somewhere else.
Yes, I think that's at the moment a very big difference between the old IDPs and the newly displaced people, is the situation of housing, as most of the newly displaced have been housed in the newly constructed settlements, and there are some issues that we have with those. But for the people who were displaced in the 1990s, many people still live in totally inadequate accommodation. Many people also, you mentioned they have problems with the issue of privatization. Some of them living in the private sector tell us that they have to move every year to find somewhere else because the landlord insists on that, or indeed that they're still living with families or hosts, and that creates tensions. But one of the difficulties in dealing with this situation is that, as far as we can tell, no one is really aware of how big the number is of these people, because there's no accurate information kept statistically on who is actually living where, particularly when people are in the private sector.
Why do you think was it still impossible for the government to solve this problem of inaccurate recording of the refugees?
I'm not sure about that. It's perhaps a question better addressed to them. But
I mean, you just mentioned the inaccurate, no one really knows how many
I think no one really knows how many people are currently living in the private sector, and that might be a legacy of many years of not being able or willing to keep statistics on the people that had moved beyond, for example, the collective centres. So there may have been a feeling that if they've moved into private accommodation or with families, that a problem had been solved. So I don't know, but as I say, they're best placed to answer that. But I think the lack of information does make it very difficult to know exactly how many people are in that situation, so how best to help them. And it's the same with issues of unemployment and healthcare. There aren't statistics that are disaggregated by whether someone is displaced or not. So although there have been some informal surveys of displaced people which suggest that their rate of unemployment is higher than that of the ordinary population, and indeed that their general level of health is lower than that of the population, without statistics it's very difficult to tell whether or not this anecdotal evidence is actually true. But if it is true, it would indicate the need to have some more targeted strategies to address those.